The talk of the town. Starting your day off right. And left. And in between. Mornings on 100.7 FM. WUTQ.
9:12 on the talk of the town with Dave, Jay, and Sam. Welcome back. A pretty good day today on tap, according to Jill Reel, our staff meteorologist from KTV. Low 60s, and some of these clouds are supposed to burn off. We're supposed to have some sunshine later in the day. Mark Wahlberg's still hanging with us today, and Mike Galime is in, running for Utica Common Council president. Mike, welcome to the show.
How you doing?
Good, good. You were talking about a video you had there, something about the cow. Have you found the cow?
I haven't found the cow. I had a couple friends who saw the cow. Mm-hmm. Took a great shot of it, just meandering across Oneida Street. Just looking for something to do. Apparently, there's a lot of grass in the parkway.
Right.
And I did a little parody. It's up on Facebook. It's going around. People are talking about it. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, it is funny. I mean, obviously it's a serious issue too, and you don't want any injuries to occur. But it is kind of funny. It's getting national exposure now. This story.
It is.
Yeah,
it is.
Do you have any solutions? I mean, do you hunt? Do you have any tranquilizer darts we can use?
I'm not sure which experts that should be brought in for something like that, but it's definitely the topic of conversation. People don't want it to end in a public forum, I think, in the middle of Genesee
I got
Street.
it, I Mike. You stand out there on the parkway in the corner and play the sax, because I know you're
like the Pied Piper, except with cows. That's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you are a musician, right?
I am. Actually, since you're talking about that, we've got something coming up on Saturday. Person Rick Zaccaro works for Carbone Auto Group, and he does a lot of work with kids. And goes around and basically shows kids how to play piano, gets them interested in music. And he put together a band, and it's basically a band of local musicians. It's a Billy Joel tribute, all about soul. It's going to be at Valentino's on Saturday. And what we do is we take the proceeds and we raffle off. If you go to the show, you put different school districts, different schools in a box, and at the halfway through the show, we pull schools out of the box and we donate really sophisticated synthesizers and pianos to the schools. And then Rick goes in and shows them how to play. And it's really, really nice.
Now, what do you play if you're a musician? What do you?
I play the saxophone.
Do you? Cool.
Yes.
Do you play in this particular band? Or
I
not?
will be.
Okay.
I'll be playing all the Billy Joel saxophone parts that you hear on all
Just the way you are?
Just the way you are, moving out.
That's a good omen for you, because the last saxophone player who ran for office was very successful in his election. Bill Clinton.
Yes.
So that's a good instrument.
We ask everybody who steps in here who has anything to do with Utica all about the downtown hospital. What are your feelings on the location there?
My feelings are, I've said this on multiple venues, is I'm not for or against the hospital. What I really, really would like to see is less polarization on the topic. If people are for it, they're for it. If people are against it, they're against it. And what I feel, what I see, what I hear, I work downtown, I hear an argument between everyone. And, I think that the hospital board is attempting to put real information on the website. They're trying to be kind of in the middle. But the reality is the hospital board has to serve the best interests of the hospital. Okay, they're a business, and they have to make the best decisions to keep their business running. So I really feel like there needs to be a conversation in the community. Someone needs to spearhead this from the middle. And we have to ask serious questions about both sites and get real answers about both sites without saying I told you so, without playing gotcha. And I really feel like the community is going to lose out if we don't have that real conversation, because this can be a really great thing for the area. And what I really don't want to see is the project, let's break ground on a project and start building things. And now we've got a huge faction of people who will forever, not like the project because they weren't part of the conversation.
And then, can I ask you this, Mike? Maybe do you believe or feel that, the conversations that we've, started or ensued here, the media, do you think that that's perpetuating it, or do you think that it's opening it up for more conversation?
I think it's both. It depends what people say. It depends how things are cut. With the media, it's a double-edged sword. You only have so much time when you're the media. You only have so much print if you're the newspapers. So you do have to take larger conversations and cut pieces out of them to let people know what people are thinking. The problem with that is you don't get the whole conversation. That's why we do need some public forums. Because, I mean, the way I look at it, if you look at Harbor Point, if you look at, the developments at Utica College, if you look at the new 5S corridor they're working on, if you look at what they did with the arterial, there were diagrams, mock-ups, there was public forums. Those projects evolved in the public eye with public input, and it was positive. And I believe those projects, because the way they're being run, will result in an overall positive outlook once the decisions are made. Because once the decisions are made, they're made. And what we don't want, and I want to bring up old business here, but is if people constantly ask me, okay, I've been to over 80 streets, walking, campaigning, knocking on doors and talking to people. And when I'm in specific areas, people are still very polarized about Stewart's.
Right.
Okay.
Sure.
That was, I mean, in the timetable of media, okay, that was a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
And the voters are still very polarized.
Still resonating.
And I really believe that the reason that's the case is because decisions are made not just in haste, but they're made without including in a more open manner what people's concerns are.
Well, that's great. That kind of brings us to the topic of why you're in here, Common Council President. And, going back to the Stewart's topic, that was really kind of formed. And I think some of those questions were really brought up in within city government of how this will happen and how it got through, the pros and the cons. So how do you feel that maybe you could bring some changes to city government if you are elected Common Council President?
I mean, specific to the hospital. I'll use that as an example.
Sure.
Okay. This has been spoken about for quite some time. It's now in the public eye. It's all over the place over the past couple of weeks. But the reality is, if you go on the hospital board website, it was as early as April that they were talking about it. And at the South Utica meetings, we were discussing it because St. Elizabeth is in South Utica. Mm-hmm. So it was a topic of discussion throughout the summer. Okay. So the community knew about this. The hospital board knew about this. What I would like to see in the future, especially if I'm elected Common Council President, is the council actually serving the people in a way where we can form and redirect our committee structure to look into the future and research these problems without having to be for or against something. Mm-hmm. We cannot polarize if we want to move forward into the future. So, perfect example, case in point, we got the hospital, okay? If we had a standing committee or an ad hoc committee looking into this ahead of time, which I'm not saying the city has not been working with the hospital, but my point is there's serious questions that could be answered right now that I'm sure people are working on now that everything, the wheels are really starting. But there's a lot of infrastructure changes that need to be made. There's quite a bit of legislation that's going to have to be passed regardless of the siting, whether it goes to Site A or Site B. And most importantly, something that I have not really seen in the media yet is the hospital is going to not pay taxes. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's been in the media. My question is, has the city, okay, which this is what I would be asking if I was there, I'd have a committee on this, okay, is there going to be a service agreement with the hospital? There has to be some funding structure to help the city maintain these parking garages, the streets, the sewers. There's a whole host of questions that should be posed that should not be polarized in being against the hospital. These are valid concerns that people who are for the hospital should also be spearheading.
We talked about a curb tax at some point in the sense of that idea, maybe?
Well, you don't want to call it a curb tax, but the reality is if you've got a giant installation that requires plowing and sidewalks and maintenance.
Sewer, water.
And not only that, but, okay, a hospital uses the roads.
Mm-hmm.
Those roads will be used heavily. They're going to have to be maintained. And to just base that off of what we think may come in on sales tax revenues is irresponsible.
One of the things you don't want to see happen is what they have in Herkimer with the Herkimer County Jail. You don't want to see this proposed and then end up in and out of court forever and spending a lot of legal fees trying to figure out whether you're going to be able to do this or not. And the Herkimer County thing's been going on forever, and they're spending a ton of money on it. What I was going to ask you about, and the same thing you brought up, what's your feeling about open government? That's a big issue with the Common Council, doing things in executive sessions versus doing this in the public. One of the issues we had earlier this year was where an historic building was torn down without any type of public hearing. And that's something that, as Common Council President, you would be involved with in terms of what is open and what is going to be done in executive session.
I'll comment on the Ivy Cottage. It's never nice to see things that people want to keep torn down. Okay, but at the same time, it was private property. Now, my wife and I went to college in Rochester. Okay, she went to college in Pittsford, and Pittsford has a really beautiful main drag. Okay, it's all brick. It's very nice. Okay, but what you see, though, is all these new businesses in Pittsford, but it looks like old Pittsford. Mm-hmm. So I think the proper way to go about that is, yes, should we consider things when they're torn down? Okay, but we cannot tell private entities that they can't do what they want with their property. So what I'd like to see is really strong architectural cues go into the coding for those areas so that, okay, if the Ivy Cottage gets torn down, that's one thing. But whatever goes up in its place should now represent that original architecture. And I think if we move forward with that type of mentality, we will maintain the look and feel that we all love in Utica, but will also not impede progress.
Mike Galime running for Utica Common Council President. It's 9:23 on the Talk of the Town, and saxophone, Rochester education. Quick thumbnail sketch for those who don't know your work and what you've done to bring to bear on the candidacy here, quickly.
Okay, so I work in the private sector. Mm-hmm. I've managed hardware and software integration projects, and I've been able to do that out of downtown Utica for the past 8 years. And basically what I do is I'm a site manager. I'm a personnel manager. I do contract cost analysis. I manage global contracts. I build projects, and I develop them. So I put teams together. I get people to work together, and I do things on a budget and get things done on a deadline. So that's what I do for a living.
Very good. Mike, thanks for joining us. Good luck with the race.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. It's 9:24 right now on the Talk of the Town, 100.7 FM, WUTQ.